Hi, and welcome to the 95th edition of Keen Minds, where we're covering NBC's The Blacklist. This was Season 7, Episode 11, Victoria Fendberg. I'm Jen, a.k.a. Takata Saiko.
And I'm Tessa.
And
hey, welcome back.
Yes, welcome back. We are not spoiler-free, folks. We are definitely going to be going over spoilers for anything prior to episode 11 of this season, and we may also have spoilers for the future. So just a heads up,
Not
friendly
that we
reminder.
haven't had that much to know about it yet, so it should be relatively cautious here.
Yeah.
So how did you like the episode in general?
Hi, and the beginning was fun. I enjoyed Red's scenes, which is shocking for me right now, as upset as I've been at Red for the last 2 years or so. But those are really the only scenes I fully no, not the only scenes. I also enjoyed wrestler scenes were pretty good, but overall I just
wrestler in ballet tights is something.
Yeah, that's an image.
Yeah,
like Liz said, that's an image.
Mm-hmm.
I think we discussed this with Lady Luck. It's the same writing duo that did Lady Luck. It's, for some reason, with these two writers, I feel like they have really good overall ideas, and then the shot goes off and they just miss the mark. It's like, this could have been great, but it's just okay at best. Before I knew who wrote the episode, my response was, I'm not sure if the writing's bad or if the actors that were playing the guest stars were just not jiving well. Because it felt like very stiff dialogue.
The dialogue was very stiff. Yeah. I thought about the actor. I wasn't too crazy about her, but then I'm not sure because I've never seen her in anything else, and the dialogue did feel very stiff.
When it first started popping up for me was when she was talking to, I'm blanking on the guy's name, but the guy whose son died, who overdosed and died. That whole scene with the two of them felt so stiff, and there was so little chemistry there. It felt like it was an info dump of, this is what we're doing, this is how we're approaching this, with no real creative finesse. And I don't know, best I remember these writers, and I say this coming from a prose background, these writers are prose writers, they're novel writers, aren't they? I believe.
I think they are novel writers, yes.
That may be some of it. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know I haven't watched or read anything else that they've written. I don't know what the deal is, but for some reason their episodes do not connect well with me.
I was describing it to you before as if you are looking at the episode through a dirty glass. And you know that on the other side something good is happening, but somehow what you see, it's mudded and not very clear. Whether you got episodes like Katerina Rostova, that was, the writing was flying, and the words and the connections and everything felt good. This I find myself, and it was the same thing I felt with Lady Luck, that it felt, you know what, it almost feels to me that the writers may not have put the same effort in understanding the characters. Like, they come in, they do this, but they're not, it's almost like they're not there in the writer's room the entire time. They're not connected to the characters. They don't, the words that they put in the characters don't really go with the characters. It could be, and it feels to me, and I'm not a writer at all, it feels to me that if they're almost there, it could be so much better, because the episodes in general, this was great. The Luck was great. It's crazy blacklisters that you're not sure if you like them or not.
the overarching ideas are great.
Yes.
It's the execution that falls short.
Yes. Usually even the Blacklist always does very interesting things with intercutting of scenes. There is one scene and you leave it and you have kind of a theme in that scene, and then you cut to what seems to be a very different scene, but somehow the themes continue, they complement, and it is only when you go back and you look at, oh, look at that kind of things seem to not happen there.
Well, that's also going to be directors as well. Will have a lot of influence over.
But this is Billy Rowe.
Ooh,
this Billy Rowe.
No.
Yeah, no.
Well, that's not it then.
No. There is something. My feel is that these writers have not spent the time with the rest of the team, and they have not maybe watched all the episodes the as many times as maybe they needed to, because it feels that there is so many great ideas. I mean, this was brilliant. I mean, this is the daughter of. I mean, takes themes from the Third Estate, takes themes to daughters going against the parents. It's very much the themes are very good.
Sorry, I was going to say the approach with the way Red used this particular blacklister in this particular case, and Liz calls him on it at the end, where she says, is that why you gave this to us, so that you could paint a picture of how easy it is to create a forgery of something? And that reminded me so much of I'm blanking
the
on
Cypress Agency.
Yes, Cypress Agency. Thank you. Because that's exactly how Red was handling. He was leading Liz to the truth about Tom through her cases. And so it was kind of a hearkening back to that, which I enjoyed. But and as you said, the dialogue, it's kind of one of those, there's something that's a continual statement in script writing books and in, studying script writing and such. It says, to make sure that characters have unique voices and that the statement can only be said by that character. It shouldn't be something that just anybody can say. And when you have dialogue that doesn't quite fit, where it falls short, especially in a show like this in which every line means something, and especially, and granted they had no way of knowing it, but our season's getting cut short with the coronavirus going on and all of production halting. But when that happens, when the writing falls short enough that it leaves you going, so am I allowed to trust this or am I not? Because there was a line at the end, I think it was during the conversation between Red and Liz.
I have them here. So.
It was the conversation between Red and Liz when they were discussing, why he gave her the case and all of this. And Red says, well, I believe the line was, I thought my casket was real. And when I first heard it last night, that we're recording this on Saturday, but when it aired on Friday, I heard that line and I perked up, and my brain made the connection of casket, not necessarily as his little gold casket that he'd been chasing down the whole episode, but as a casket that someone would lay in, because we're dealing with who's Raymond Reddington. And that's where
my brain... the casket was definitely a point there. Very good.
That's where my brain went. That's where my brain has been conditioned to go with the Blacklist. But if you can't trust the dialogue, if you can't trust the depth of the writing there, it makes it kind of iffy. You won't know until you don't know how much weight you can put on things.
My view for these writers is, I'm not sure that they're there on a regular basis. That's what it feels like, that they don't know the voices of the characters so well. It used to be that when you started in the Blacklist, they started writing episodes with another writer, more senior writer that had been there longer and could kind of get the voices, the unique feel for.
or you worked your way up through the ranks, which is how many writers come to be staff writers. Sam Christopher is a newly minted staff writer, and she worked her way up. She was a script coordinator. She's been with the show for years. She didn't get her first episode until last year.
Yes.
And then for this season, she got staffed. And that's, if you're not immediately put on the staff, a lot of times that's how it happens, because that helps the person really know and really understand, especially on a layered show like this one. Yeah. There is a deep understanding there. And I'm not knocking that. People come in who have credentials from other places. Otherwise,
some people are very good about capturing the voice, or I'm not sure. And I don't want to knock them down, because they're really, there is nothing wrong with the episodes. But there is always something that you feel like you're looking at it through a dirty glass. Like, you could see that there could be so much brilliance there. It was great. The Blacklister was great. They do this very good Blacklisters that you cannot quite like, but you cannot quite dislike. Like Lady Luck.
Very morally ambiguous.
Yeah, like Lady Luck. I mean, she was crazy, but at the same time, it's like, yes, but you do know what gamblers do to families. So at the same time, this is the same. I mean, this woman is going against her father because the son was addicted on drugs, but does she know what happened? Maybe the kid was always addicted on drugs. It seems like it's all very ambiguous, and I like that. I like their Blacklisters.
I felt like let's focus in on that family for a little bit, because I went back and I rewatched it 3 times, because I typically only do one more rewatch unless it's just a fantastic episode. But I just really wanted to make sure I was not overlooking something that I should be seeing. And the first thing that really caught, and this goes back to the stiff dialogue, because this is 100% writing right here, is that when the FBI first came in, I think it was Wrestler and Liz, first walked in to talk to them, the dad says, well, my family is here. This is my wife so-and-so and my daughter so-and-so. And it's like, I just sat there and just kind of shook my head and went, that was such an info dump. Like, there's so many other ways. It was, they are here because of this, and these are their names, because we haven't mentioned that, and I have to let you know how I am related to these people, and they are entering, enter from stage left, sort of thing. And it just went...
That's something that the Blacklist doesn't do, ever. No. The Blacklist always leaves you thinking, who are these people? And by being drawn into understanding who they are, you're drawn into the character.
And they also trust the audience, because, I mean...
The woman is there looking like she belongs there. You have to trust the actor. And maybe that's what they don't do. They don't trust actors. I wonder if they have a script writing background.
They don't. I'm, if I'm remembering correctly, because I remember going and looking this team up. I believe it's a married couple.
Yes, they are.
I went and looked them up when Lady Luck, because it was such an odd feeling with Lady Luck. And best I remember, and I could be wrong, and that's, if I am, apologies, but best I remember, they come from a novel writing background. And I will tell you, as someone who comes from a prose background, who is currently, working with scripts, not, I don't have my own show or anything, but, there is a difference in mostly the autonomy, that you have over your own novel, even if you're working with a writing partner. You were the showrunner of that.
There is no actor inhabiting. There is no. You control what the audience understands and imagines.
Script writing, especially television script writing, is a very collaborative process. You're working not only, if you were a staff writer for a script, you're working not only with the showrunner, whose vision you have to meet, but other writers. You're working from shows that you have not, probably in this far into a show that you weren't even around for when the conversations were being had on this. Mm-hmm. You have to trust the actors that are there, the director, the stunt people, every inch of it. It's so collaborative, and if you don't come from that background, I could see where it'd be very difficult Like, I have always enjoyed working with other people, so I think that I would very much enjoy doing that. But I could see where if you come from a novel writing background, you're cemented there, where that transition would be very difficult.
Yeah. Well, I trained as a theater director, and you so much of the things you do, you trust the actor. I mean, the text is there, but the actor is saying it, and you sometimes you just cut things off because they're unnecessary. When the actor gets the character, a lot of the writing is unnecessary. Like when they had lines when Liz died, and Spader said, "I'm just going to literally crumble down in, without my foundational element, I'll crumble down," and that scene was worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, and I will say that James's scenes in this episode were amongst my favorites. I felt like, and Tessa and I were discussing this before we started recording, an actor, a fantastic actor that is secure in their own craft, has been doing this like James has for years and is just very comfortable in their craft. They can take bad dialogue and make it tolerable.
Mm. And a good writer, similarly, a bad actor can kill the dialogue.
Exactly. And so, like, writers are kind of get the worst of it sometimes because, their dialogue can be butchered. But Jane, and I think that's why I lean more towards this being a writing issue with this episode, because James was able to take these scenes. James and Hisham was. The birthday
he may
scene
have had
great.
A greater control over his lines that the rest of the actors do.
And he may
have tweaked them or adapted them. And also
because he is an executive producer.
Yeah. So he does a level of control that the other ones don't. But I mean, the Blacklister, it's like, I like the concepts they come up with. And I think that they, with a little more time and work in there, they could get 2 episodes that would be phenomenal. But one of the most interesting things to me is that we are, this time, I know that Liz believes that she was given this as a fake, but this is when we start seeing the magician. And I know that a lot of people were very upset when we had earlier in the season and Reddy saying, "Oh, I don't know, it's luck. You trusted. I am comfortable with chaos," when everything with the Frank Bloom mess and Aram got it, and that, and a lot of people were very uncomfortable with that. And saying that, that seems like the writers are just, jumping the shark. I mean, it's not even jumping the shark. It's like they're jumping. It's like a whole bank of sharks jumping. And I said, no, this is actually been anchored from the very beginning, that when we met Red, we were the audience in a magic show. We had the lights and we had the rabbit and the smoke and everything looked beautiful. And we thought that Red did everything for reasons. Yet Red is saying life is full of lovely little ironies. And Red is talking about, like things just sometimes happen for a reason. And he had been saying about chaos and being comfortable in chaos and trusting that things will happen. So when we got to this episode, you can see that he really didn't give them this case. Liz thought that because now Liz is paranoid and she totally bought that Red controls everything. But we, the audience, have a point of view that Liz doesn't have. We know that he gave them this case because he was in the midst of Lembe's birthday. He came, and it turned out that he was able to sell this thing, and now he can't because it's a fake, and he has to find the real stuff. So there's nothing like. So I wonder if the Cyprus agency was really because Brett wanted Liz to consider the adoption thing. or consider her own origins that she didn't know about, or it just presented itself.
It just worked out that way because, I mean, she'd been going through the adoption for years, they'd been trying to adopt for about a year at that point, I think.
Yeah, they discussed it for a year and went through the process for 6 months by then.
Yeah, and so, I mean, they were a year and a half into that, and so, you know, I could see Red of coming, you know, that he came across something like that, and he's like, oh, that would be nice, because he knew the moment that a child was in the picture that cemented, and I think he said something to that degree in season 3, maybe, before Tom and Liz decided
even in that episode he told them
that it cements them together forever. And I mean, even now they have a child, you know, even with Tom gone, they have a child together. There's a connection there.
Yeah, it made them part of the family.
And
those lines from the Cyprus agency are pivotal. You know, there is nothing as fundamental as the decision to have a child. And it changes everything, and it always comes in an inopportune moment. That all, but the funny thing is, we are now thinking everything Russ does have a reason, and maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's just lucky.
I think it's probably a happy medium somewhere in between. Mm-hmm. That he is a man of opportunity. And I mean, because he can't have survived as long as he has on luck alone. No person is that lucky.
He made contingencies, but sometimes he's perfectly comfortable with chaos.
Well, I think that's probably accurate, but I do think that he is a man that thinks well on his feet, and that takes advantage, not necessarily in a bad way, but is able to adjust to the situation to pull it around to his advantage. It's a true talent of his.
Yes.
And so
he's able to read people.
Yeah. He's very good at it. And so that's a lot of it. And it's funny because you were talking about how Liz is so convinced about that, and how we as viewers have a different, you know, lens to look through this in. But so many viewers, and we've talked about this multiple times before because I've fallen prey to it, in which you look at Red and you think, oh, well, he's infallible. You fall under his own spell, the spell that he's got everybody else in the show.
He works very hard to make people believe that he knows everything, he controls everything. And now that we've been peeling those, we see that he's a con man.
And a con man a manipulator, a con man, any name you want to add to it, will walk into a room and they will own the room whether they should be able to or not.
Yeah.
Because they will speak with such confidence that even if it's negating what you know is true, you find yourself going, wait a second, maybe I'm wrong?
Yeah.
It's a confidence thing. And it just, some people can pull it off, some people can't. Raymond Reddington is off the charts for it. And I still stand by that. I can't imagine I know they looked at other actors, but James pulls it off better than anybody else I can think of.
Yeah, definitely. There was only a moment of Wrestler when he was talking about Wrestler in Tights. Should we talk about Wrestler in Tights?
I think we should. Most certainly we should talk about Wrestler in Tights.
And I'm just seeing Wrestler as it is.
I think a lot of the audience is seeing him as we know him.
Yeah, as we know it, with the little tights and the ballet shoes, and usually they wear makeup, and the whole thing is like, oh no.
It's hilarious.
I do find the Wrestler attractive, but not in tights.
Oh my gosh. It was amazing.
Give me something, give me a Speedo or something like that, but please not the tights.
I mean,
yeah, I mean the tights, thank you, no. I didn't need that visual.
I thought it was
I love
hilarious.
ballet, but I never liked the men in tights.
I thought it was interesting from a character point of view. That's not, I mean, he comes from a very much you imagine that he was a Boy Scout as a kid, that he was an analytical sort of individual, that, I mean, his father was a police officer, he grew up in Detroit. all of these, he's a man's man, but he was in theater production and he was in the arts, and I think that's kind of fun. It adds something a little bit different, and it's not something that I would have necessarily seen or expected from him, and I think that was the point. I didn't feel like it was a misjudging of character as much as it was revealing something that we are supposed to feel like.
Yeah, well, and especially because we're gearing up towards the episode, and I don't know if they got to film that one.
They filmed it. I spoke to Allie Blacklister about this because she does so much research for behind the scenes. That is the last episode they have filmed, and they are currently, because they're shuttered in LA, and they are doing their best post-production from their homes in Los Angeles for that episode. I don't know what the title of it is. I've got the title of the episode. What's it called?
The Brothers.
Interesting. I hadn't heard the title name.
Yeah. They had the picture of, like, it looked like four guys, two adults and two like teens. So I think that is Wrestler and his brother and them as kids.
Okay. But that, from what I understand, that will be our season finale. Unless something, because everything's so up in the air with the whole coronavirus thing. And they do post-production in Los Angeles, and they do filming in New York. They are just in all sorts of trouble with Blacklist. It's funny because so Brian Eggle dropped a little bit of shade on his Instagram the other day before they halted production on shows, and he said, "I love it how nobody else in Los Angeles and New York is." I'm not quoting this verbatim, but that people are being told to stay home. He said, "And we're filming in Bellevue Hospital." How does that make sense? And then, like, a day or two later, production started. You started seeing production groups halt. It's for the safety of the actors, of everybody involved,
the crew and everybody. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Gotta
we're
do it.
We're going to be pissed, and we're going to be upset about it, but
I would rather.
You know what? Safety first. That's the only thing that matters.
Exactly. And so they did get renewed for a season 8. So they'll figure it out and they'll adjust. It'll be fine. Maybe, NBC will be able to provide them with some extra episodes so they can adjust for that, or maybe they can tighten up their writing.
I like that for the more episodes. Thank you. Yes.
Well,
do both.
Yeah, let's do both, because their writing used to be super tight. Like, come on, John, tighten it back up, man.
I think it is very tight. I think that is more tight than we think it is. I know, I'm the lone voice here, but I still believe. I'm a believer.
I still believe that they know where they're going. I still believe that they have a goal. I just think that they've stretched it beyond where they originally thought they were going to be at, and therefore the story is being stretched.
It is a very popular opinion, but I gotta say you something. I've been working at the numbers. I cracked the code of the numbers. I'm not talking about it. But what I do tell you is that it was always meant for 8 seasons. It was. That's the numbers. We're going to get every number that we need to get what we need. We are. I know that everybody loves to think it is. And some of the season 5, you feel like, oh my God, how long can you go with his bones? But in retrospect, when you see what they were doing, sometimes you don't see what they were doing until you get to 2 seasons later. And then you go like, I see.
They have always been off with pacing. I have complained about Bokenkam's pacing.
That's not Bokenkam's forte, no.
No, it's not. It's because he's a feature writer. I am convinced that's the reason. I may be wrong. It's happened before. But I think it's because he's a feature writer. And with features, you have, a couple hours to tell your story. Here, we're going to go to 8 seasons or more. And that's just, you can't write it like you would a feature. You have to play the long game. And The one I always go back to is the Major. We met the Major in season 2. He put the hit out on Tom in season 2, and it wasn't until halfway through season 3 that came to fruition. And either that makes the Major the most incompetent, successful man in his business, or
maybe time was a little compressed.
But it didn't make sense, and it's because the pacing is off.
Well,
and John's not the only one to do that. He's not the only one to fail at pacing. Tons of people do, but it frustrates me.
But let me tell you something. There is something that the Blacklist does that, and I haven't got really aware of it until I started looking at things back in this hiatus, and I started thinking. Sometimes they give us scenes that we think are at some particular time that they're not. For example, that scene with Tom picking up the suitcase that we saw at the end of season 4. That didn't happen until 5:02 when he arrived. Well, 5:01 when he arrives home, and Liz is coming back from the road trip, and he's there. Or no, I'm sorry, he's coming back from Europe, and he's there.
No,
he's coming back from the road trip.
It was the road trip,
so
yeah.
5:01 is when he picks up the suitcase, but we see it before Red goes back to the farm and sees that he's gone. So they sometimes do these things just because of the shock value, just because it brings anticipation that you know who picked up that suitcase. It doesn't mean that scene belongs in there. There is sometimes they play a little fast.
That was the last episode of season 4.
Yes.
He came back in the last episode of season 4.
No.
Yes, but yeah.
There is time. They presented that episode, that scene, before Red went to find the suitcase. And that didn't happen because Red went back to the hotel. He was living there. He was in New York stealing cars. And a little time has passed because he's at a hotel now living permanently. And it's the summer, and Cooper has decided that he's going to tell everybody. It's maybe not like months that have passed, but some time has passed, and we are meant to believe that happened at the same time. It didn't. So when we saw the Major tell him find him, that
shouldn't be the way, though. That shouldn't be the way. And some TV shows are just bad about that. I mean, in Blacklist is always, one, they've got a pacing problem. 2, they seem to forget sometimes that it actually does take time to move between DC and New York, even if you're filming in New York.
That's the way that the universe of the Blacklist operates.
Well, I mean, and like on this episode, I was kind of laughing that this poor woman seemed to have one set of clothes. Like that dress that she was wearing was all that she wore the entire time.
No,
was
she didn't. She had another thing.
Nope, that was it. I've seen it 3 times. She was
Didn't
in
she
that
had a sweater or something?
She had a shawl that she was wearing, kind of like a robe
that's what it
she
was
wearing over it. But it was, I saw it on the second or third round through. It was over that dress still.
Oh, okay.
Like she was wearing that from the beginning to the end. So I mean, for a wealthy woman, I guess that's what it was supposed to be, but it felt very much like several days. But I don't know. If there's an issue where they're handing you scenes that should be out of order, they shouldn't be doing that. You should be able to follow without having to contort into all sorts of different directions to try to figure out this puzzle piece of their current timeline.
It doesn't bother me.
It bothers me. Because I'm a huge fan of timelines. Continuity is my jam. And there's another show, I won't mention the name of it, but if you know me, if you followed my Tumblr for any length of time, you probably know what it is, in which they literally they went back on their world's calendar and used two totally different, like they said, oh, well, it's been so many years since this happened, and then changed it all within the same episode. And that's, you've got to be able to follow the continuity of things. And if what you're saying, you know, where I'd have to go back, it's been a while since I've done a full rewatch of Blacklist, but if they ended season 4 with Tom with the bones, and then that wasn't supposed to happen till right before Liz comes home, and there's supposed to be all this time in between, like, that's not appropriate. Like, they've got to find a better way to do that.
I don't think they can. Because you gotta have that there is something that happened when you knew who had the bones, okay? And that is something that, unless you really look at the totality of it, you're not going to see. Why? Kaplan did very weird things when she dug those bones. First, it was not her first choice. The other Jen in my life in Reddit, I've been going crazy thinking, why did she think that she was giving Liz the truth? And a lot of people were saying, well, she was trying to separate Red from Liz. It didn't quite jive for me. It didn't, because that's not what she said. But she did very weird things. The first thing is, she told Red. Who does that? If she really wanted just to give the bones to Liz, all she had to do was give the bones to Liz. Have Dennison give the bones to Liz. Have them delivered through FedEx. Here is your bag of bones. Have them delivered through, I don't know, anybody. Have Dennison break into their apartment. She had Tom pick them up. She had Tom call Dennison when he picked them up. And then she told Red about it. So that, it's important, because if you start thinking about the logic of that, you start thinking there is another thing that she was doing that wasn't just simply giving the bones to Liz. And what the other Jen figured out was that the bones were supposed to, she believes the bones were Katerina's. And by Red hiding them, he was making Liz believe that there was a lot of danger coming from her mother's enemies, and he was protecting her. And once that we see the Townsend directive, we get, wait a minute, if she's dead, the danger is over, because there is nobody to hold Liz hostage for. There's nothing. She's not going to come forward because she's dead. So there was a sense that by keeping those hidden, Red was giving himself an excuse to be in Liz's life that he didn't need to be. And that's what she was doing by digging the bones, is telling Liz, listen, there is no danger for you. Your mother is dead. There is no reason for you to be in Red's life. Get out of that life, and that's it. There's nothing coming for you from her point of view. So that to me makes sense. And I think that by showing us who Tom was the one picking them up, showing us that she told Red, we should start thinking in terms of, wait a minute, what is this woman doing? Because it doesn't make any sense. And what I found is, in the Blacklist, things make sense. It is just that you have to really ask yourself what are they doing, because you're not getting all the puzzle pieces at once. So you're getting a little bit of this and you think, oh, I got the whole thing. No, you didn't. Now you're going to get the rest of the piece and you go like, that's where it goes.
I think that the real key here is that this Jen needs to do a rewatch.
Well, it's such a complex, and there is a lot of people that are getting very frustrated with it, and like, give us something real. And I think you can't. You gotta kind of pixelate that picture and have people build their own picture as you get in the pieces. It's very complicated.
You mean pixelate it like the intro?
Yes, something like it. You're getting pieces. Yeah. So, we didn't get any much for any of it except for.
Well, I think that part of that may be because I found myself at the end of this episode going, where's the ballet? Like, we've been working up to the ballet. Why are we not ending with that? Why did we leave?
Because it were
it's because it was supposed to be a 2-episode, but they probably stretched it out because they were like, we're not going to get our full 22 episodes this season, so let's just go ahead and air it as long as possible, which makes sense. But it's also, they wrote it a certain way, and the Coopers are not writing next week's episode. That was written by Lucas Rader. So
yes, he's very good at the heists. Now, the interesting thing with that about this episode that I found was that there's been a lot of things about Cooper. Does Cooper really believe that Red is not Raymond Reddington? This and that. And I found myself interested in learning that it was Cooper who told Red about the ballet.
Yeah, and that was interesting with the Herald, because we've never really heard Liz refer to him as Herald, and then Red repeated the name immediately after. I don't know why. I don't know if it was bizarre writing or if it was meant. Yeah,
Harold thought I would like to know, because it was almost like Liz was pissed that Harold told him.
Yeah,
but what's interesting there is that Cooper told Red because Cooper thought that pertained to Red. So that tells me that Cooper, what was then Cooper doing when he was saying like Mr. Kozlov? And then it hit me. Cooper knows that Red is the same Red that he used to know. He just thought that Kozlov was the identity he used to have before becoming Reddington, which was not in 1991. But I know that is not a popular opinion.
So circling back around, because we were talking about Wrestler a few minutes ago, and I apologize, everybody. I did not write notes down, so a little bit scattered.
We're all
today.
Over the place. It goes with the episode too, though.
Yeah, that's true. But we were talking about you said the one thing that, Wrestler really had was the talk about being in tights, and that there are two different things. One also in that scene, and there was another scene that I want to talk about. But him coming to Liz and saying, I killed your mother. I didn't pull the trigger, but I killed her because I dug into it. I did this. I really enjoyed that scene. I felt like Diego headed out of the park.
Yes, that was a very good scene for him.
I saw something on someone's blog post that apparently John came out and said, oh, well, she didn't volunteer the information. The only reason, it's not that she's trusting Wrestler, it's that she didn't want him to feel guilty and this and that. I feel like if you have to deep dive explain your writing that much, and while it's not technically his writing, maybe he had to do that because the writers didn't portray it the way he needed them to. I don't know, but
this is a blabbermouth. Let's get on real.
She is.
She cannot keep any secret for any length of time.
And Wrestler's a good one to tell, because he's gotten to the point now that he's deep enough in the gray that he's not going to immediately go, we need to tell our superiors everything. He's going to hold on to things. He's going to, work with her and trust her on things. He's grown in that way, so she can trust him. He's gonna be a good ally at this point.
Yeah. Well, trust her is the one part that I don't agree there. I think that anybody who trusts Liz at this point is insane.
That could be true. You know what I mean? All within
normal reasons,
parameters.
Yeah. It's Liz.
There was another scene at the end that was really good, and I thought that I really just felt like Diego was on his game for this episode. It was the scene with Victoria at the end, and again, her lines, her acting, all of that was just really bizarre. Where she goes in, she's talking to the guy and telling him that, oh, I'll take the fall with you, this and that. And so she walks out, and Wrestler calling her on everything, and it was really. really interesting because we had Red set up that he might want to use her in the future, that he loved her work, he appreciated why she was doing it. They could have a business transaction in the beginning. And Wrestler came in and cemented that he knows what she did. And he's not overlooking it. He just doesn't have proof to bring her in. And it was very much... It was a very interesting scene. I really liked it. Because it did allow... As deep in the gray as Wrestler's gotten, it allowed him to pull back to that. He is a cop. At his core, he is a cop. And he should be.
I thought it was hilarious that she was stealing from her family. I mean, really, she wasn't even a criminal. I mean, that's not a problem that Red, who stole the piece.
I mean, she is, because she's also fencing.
Stolen her from her own family.
Yeah, but she's fencing it. It's on the black market. I mean, it's iffy. I just thought
it was brilliant.
That the actors that were playing that family, they were just so cookie cutter. I mean, they really were. And I mean, it was a little bit of typecasting. I would have liked the Blacklist to go by, which they do brilliant sometimes. They cast people that you do not expect in a role, and they work very well. I don't think that they were very much like chess pieces. You're supposed to be the rich executive who has no heart. And she was, so this is like shades of so I think that's emerging as a theme, is the children of parents who are doing things that they're not necessarily agree with are taking their hand. And I want to remind everybody of Jennifer, because I know that I have said this in the past, but if you really examine what the arcs have been, we're missing the big bad of season 6. And I say why, because the big bad of season 6 was Jennifer. And she was using Liz to go against Red. And if you go with that, this is a theme that has become used more and more often, that we have seen this, of children going against the parents. We saw it, children going with the parents, which is very interesting in the previous episode by the same team of writers. And Lady Locke is the daughter who goes like, yep, well, I'm taking over the family business. And in this episode is the daughter saying, you know what, I don't agree with what you did, and I'm going to hold you responsible for it. Yeah, I mean, and a lot of that falls into pace with the way Liz is reacting to Red.
Yes.
So back in season 4, I think was when Lady Luck was. Mm-hmm. Season 4, season 5, it was family business. Right. That was the tagline. I mean, she thought Red was her dad. She was cool with it. She was excited about it. It was family business. They were all in as good of a place as you can.
Good point.
Yeah, as good of a place as you can be in the Blacklist and be family. But now she's at odds with him. She's, like Wrestler said, playing dumb. She told you not
to trust him.
Yeah, I mean, that's
a tagline of this season.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting what Red said. I love a juicy family drama. Greed, resentment, betrayal, secrets. So that's what we're going to see.
What's the line from Tom a few seasons back? Secrets,
secrets put people in harm's way.
Yeah. And so, but that's
it's all coming down. Yeah, it is. So I see that a lot of people may be a little upset with not having the ends and you may even mentioned stretching it out. I see the thread starting to converge. Part of that is the numbers, part of that is the rewatches that I've done. Not sure that I put them all in Tumblr, but I did in Reddit. I did an entire series of looking at the bones from the point of view of every one of the players. It was, and I thank you for that. You were the one who really got me into thinking into points of view. And once you look at what happens from the point of view, everything is illuminated.
It does. And just as human beings, it's very easy to get stuck on various points of view. You may look, I am a Tom fan, I'm a Liz fan, I'm a wrestler fan, and so I'm going to understand those characters more than I might understand Park, who I just don't like.
But she's there for a reason.
Maybe.
She's telling a part of the story.
I hope she is, because I feel like every time they try to make her a big deal, they miss, and otherwise she just fades to the background. I don't know. I feel like they just kind of needed somebody there. We'll see. Time will come back, and there may be a way to look at it later and say, okay, from her point of view, this all now makes sense. Mm-hmm. But as human beings, we're inclined to look at the people we enjoy more, their point of view first, rather than the people we dislike. And so that's just the way of things.
But there is more in the Blacklist than just the characters we like. There is also a lot of people don't seem to be able to see the point, what a character knows. So, and how they confuse us and confuse the issues to obscure what the mystery is by having something look from one character's point of view and confusing that with the audience point of view. What the character knows at one time is not what the audience knows, is not what another character knows. So when you look at things, you have to always find whose point of view are you seeing things from. And that, I find it very interesting. And do we have to talk about finally seeing Red and Dembe on horseback? I love that.
Like, I'm not sure why it happened, but I'm not opposed.
It was cool.
Like, it was
like elephants. They didn't need to be there, but it was cool. I'm good with it.
I'm not going to complain. I mean, it was fun. And I think that's the point. I really do think that was the point of all that, is that opening was just fun. It was exciting. It was Red. It was, it was a party, and then it was a fake death, and then it was a near-death escape. I do wonder what happened to his Ukrainian friend's daughter, though.
It doesn't seem to have done much. But again, there's another daughter in danger. There is, a fake death. There is a casket. It was just great. And then those lovely things that we don't get to see very often, that Red knew that Dembe liked the scarf, that he bought it, that he sent Dembe away on a fool's errand, and he had it under his hat.
I talk about their normal a lot when I talk about the Keens. The Keens normal is not everybody else's normal, and how they had to find their own normal in their marriage to be able to function correctly. Mm-hmm. And that is such a beautiful example of Red and Dembe's normal, in that to be able to get a surprise present for Dembe. He told Dembe that a guy was following them, sent him off. I mean, it's not just, oh, look over there. It's, that guy's following us. I half expected Dembe to look over at Red and go, I shot him. I was just cackling, though. It was a great.
And he was so excited that he loved it. It was a very warm scene, and I love that we saw Foucault and can't remember the other guy's name.
Yeah, it's
the new cleaners.
Yeah, I like them. They're fun. And
it was a ma'am, and we saw Brimley. It was a lot of fun.
Was that the same mom that we've seen Dembe speaking to before, his spiritual advisor?
Yes, that's the same.
Okay, cool. Well, I assumed it probably was, but I just didn't go back and looked. That's good, though, because I mean that shows pieces that they have created roots where they are. They really have. I mean, as much as they used to move about and to always be on the go, they still are, but they have deep roots that they have planted here. Mm-hmm. I mean, Dembe has his spiritual life there. Red has Liz. I mean, they are not nearly as mobile as they used to be. They couldn't just burn the identities and go at this point. Not without giving up tremendous things.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, that scene and the bathroom scene. We have to talk about the bathroom scene.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So the moment that Red said it, I laughed so hard because I feel this way. He said, "Do you ever think about that sitting in the bath is just like cooking in your own juices?" Because I'm that nutcase that I have to take a shower before I take a bath.
Of course.
And then I go and I take I take another shower to wash my hair and everything. Like I only take baths to soak. I don't take them to get clean. I will never take a bath to get clean because to me, you will emerge just as dirty as you went in.
Yeah, you just redistributed.
I've never heard someone else vocalize that before. And I was like, thank you, Red, for validating my insanity.
And then they bring a waffle maker, and then they're making the waffles in the same waffle maker. It was just great. It was just great. And then he's like, "I'm hungry. Let's go use a waffle maker to make waffles." And the guys, I mean, it was just, I mean, it reminded me of when they goes and is that cayenne pepper? What a nice little kick when they're talking about Samuel and the nanny movies and the Cub movies. That kind of scene it's Red at its best.
Red and Dimbe have some great moments throughout the entire show where these little, almost domestic things are sprinkled in the middle of these chaotic situations. Here, they have just threatened a man, and they are basically holding him hostage in his own home, forcing him to put him in touch with the forger. But we've seen this again and again. I mean, season 1, when they were holding Craig.
Oh
King.
yes, we're making talk, and then they're looking at the Three Stooges, and they're laughing about the hat thing, and yeah.
It's so funny because that is their normal.
When they're looking at the magazine in the season 4, and they're finding, I can't remember the name of the magazine.
Yeah, but I love that kind of stuff, and it's a nice piece of levity.
And these writers do it well. Those two scenes were very well done.
Yeah.
So that was really good. And I think now we have to talk about the scenes with Liz, because that is the real meat of the theory here. What Liz finally told Red, that is that woman my mother? And I don't know if people noticed, but he didn't really say no. He just said she's a fake. That's very different from saying she's not your mother.
Well, I mean, it was also interesting because I'm sitting there and listening to him, and you know that I don't think that that's the real Katerina Rostova in Lottie Burbank.
I know after you made a spreadsheet, yes.
Yes, my spreadsheet. Thankfully, my spreadsheet has been put away. I have not continued to add to that. I've only got so much time in my day. But I don't think that that's our Lottie Burbank Katerina. I think it's, there are several different paths that could go down. We've covered that, but it was interesting to hear all of that because he did point out, and I don't think that she ever did say. She said
I'm your mother.
Yeah, she did finally say that, but she let Liz say it first.
Yes, and that's when she goes like, "Oh, wait a minute, you think I'm your mother? Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll be your mother."
Exactly, and there is no precedent saying that this woman doesn't lie to Liz. Red, I would argue, has lied to Liz before, but in general, it takes a whole lot more for Red to do more than just lead her down a different path. To straight up look her in the eye and lie to her, it would take something more extreme. Mm-hmm. But there's no such
well, it was the look in her eye and Lila did a terrific job there.
Oh,
I mean,
great.
It was like, oh, you think that's who I am? That's pretty good. And I think that when people get confused is in the name, because she is Katerina Rostova. That doesn't mean that she's the only Katerina Rostova.
Yeah,
I think that her
know.
name is Katerina.
I don't know. I think there are a bunch of different things that could be happening there. And so I'm not getting too devoted to one theory or another, other than I just really don't think she's Kat. I don't think
she's not Dom's daughter. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I have not believed that since the moment that he met her in Paris. Mm-hmm. And there is a few very interesting theories. It says that there is what he was really doing in there is actually just using her. I mean, leading the people to her. If she got killed, well, and if she didn't, well, then he got her saved. Because that meeting was
Red. I don't think Red wanted her to die particularly. I think he would have preferred to have kept her alive. But if push came to shove, obviously, he's not. He didn't fight Dembe too hard on that when he was like, "Stay in the car." And all they would have had to do was mow the people down, really. But
he was saying your mother is gone. It doesn't mean your mother is dead. It's just means your mother is gone.
It was all Red speak. Very much Red speak. I wouldn't be surprised if Bokenkamp and Eisendrath didn't take a very heavy, heavy pass at that scene.
Probably.
They may have written
that was very but it's interesting that Red now knows that she told Liz that she was Katerina, and now I imagine that Red would start thinking, wait a minute, what else happened there that I'm not sure.
She said that. What else did she say?
Exactly. Yeah. And Ilya was there. Who's not to say that Liz doesn't know that he's not Ilya?
Well, Wrestler sat there and said, play dumb, that part. And then Liz, and I love Liz. I do. I love her dearly. But as you said earlier, she can't keep a secret. And so not only does she say, is this my mother? She goes and volunteers information. And that's always her downfall, is when she volunteers information, people who are super manipulative and very good at what they do with it are able to use that to lead her down certain paths.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are saying that this is like Jennifer too. I think it's different. This woman is first is playing with far deeper emotions of being your mother. And that I think that it is entirely possible that this woman is Liz's biological mother. It's not the woman who raised her. It's not her mother.
I think that would get really complicated in ways that are a bit much.
Just remember, you used to not believe me with a lot of things.
Still not on board with your Katharina.
I know, but you didn't believe at first that Katerina was not the real one.
I did.
No,
I never thought she was the real Katerina. Oh, no. Okay, so at the very tail end of season 6, when she showed up, I just said, until proven otherwise, I have no reason to disbelieve it. But we saw like 5 seconds of her, and he called her Katerina. So, I mean, like, what else are you going to do? But first episode in, I'm going, no.
Yeah, as soon as he actually called her Katerina, like, you're not Katerina.
That's fair. All right. Do you have anything else for the episode?
No, I think that pretty much covers. It's interesting. I think there was that conversation in the car was certainly very important.
Yeah.
Because she also used words like she preyed on her emotions, and that's something that Liz falls very prey to. And I was remembering something. This some people have compared this as Kirk as a fake father, but Kirk was not a fake father. Kirk believed he was his father. So that's a very different situation. But it reminded me that what she told Kirk was, you're a classic narcissist. You think what terrible things have people done to you. And I don't know that, but Liz was really describing the things that happened to her. It was like, she's a narcissist. She's the the person whose bad things happen to her. And I think that inability, Liz is so desperate to find her biological parents that she will throw under the bus the people that really love her, and the people that have come and to trust her, and to be her real family, in order to find a biological relative. And that's the lesson that she's learning. Just because somebody is your family is your relative doesn't make them your family.
Yeah. And, but she's done that for a long time, that she feels like blood lets them get away with a lot of things. I mean, we've seen it with Red, we saw it with Kirk, and now we're seeing it with this woman. It's, once she believes there's a blood connection there, the person can quite literally get away with murder.
Yeah.
And she'll be like, but that's who they are, you know. And that's a flippant way of responding.
And she would throw the task force under the bus, or Red under the bus, with not even a thought.
Well, I mean, think about that conversation right after Kirk had Agnes up on the roof, was holding, Agnes over the roof, and then he ends up in the hospital, and Liz is talking about donating,
because
whatever.
She wanted answers.
And Tom's like, this is the man that held our kid on a roof. Can we talk about this? Like, is this really, can you take the blinders off for 5 seconds? Yeah. And to be fair, he went the entire other way with his family of, I just don't want anything to do with them. But, it's the way you process trauma. And different people process.
So I don't have anything else, but it's very interesting. The characters are really, growing, and I think we're going towards the end, and I myself, I can't wait to see more. Yeah. Too bad we're 4 episodes short, but alas, all we want is for them to all be safe.
Yeah, I mean that's the key right there, and all of our listeners as well, wherever Stay you guys safe. Are. Yeah, I mean, because we've got listeners from all over the world, so you guys stay safe, practice good common sense, wash your hands. That shouldn't be. It's the weirdest thing that people.
And go take a walk in a park if you have it, away from people.
Yeah.
I mean, nature is a great way of healing and staying in normal, because you can get a little crazy.
Yeah, I know. I have been. I mean, it's just me and the cat around here, and that gets interesting.
You can always take the cat for a walk.
Yeah. You ever own a cat?
Yeah.
You put a harness on them and they fall over.
I've seen people walking cats. I've never done it. I mean, I've always had just outdoor cats. Cats that come in and out of the house as they please. In fact, I never had a cat that has not been exactly as they please. The idea that a cat will stay in a place I tell them to stay, it's bizarre to me.
Mine will stay. I'll tell him to stay, and he'll stay sometimes.
Yeah, well, that's a special cat. In my world, cats are like, I am the king. I live here. You serve me, and and if I just feel displeased for whatever reason, it would be my nails on your legs.
Yeah, that's my cat bites me, but yeah. So I'm sitting here, and he got under my desk and started biting my fingers. I'm like, thanks, dude. Love you too. Mm-hmm. I'm just the person that feeds you, takes care of you. No big deal. All right. Well, guys, we've missed you. Good to be back, and good to have Blacklist back for as long as we have it. Really looking forward to next week's episode. Like we mentioned, it's Lucas, and he's really good. So you can catch us, you can listen to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, and iTunes. And if you have anything you'd like to say, especially as everybody is practicing social distancing right now, feel free to ping us on Facebook, Twitter, or Tumblr. And Tessa's over on Reddit. I'm not, but Tessa is.
I am.
Well, I'm on Reddit. I just don't ever check it.
Yeah. All right, kid. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.